Good morning, it's Leah. I just got back from my walk and I just had so many things on my mind. I didn't even stop to go get my little setup, which is just my little tripod. But I have a lot going on right now in my heart and my mind. Yesterday I shared with you on the video that one of my members in my community, a woman, was in a very terrible accident and is still fighting for her life. And my heart has definitely been with her and her family and my prayers. And she actually is scheduled to come with me to Italy on a retreat that I am hosting at the end of September with 18 other incredible women, and even more incredible now. So I had reached out to everybody to share, what was going on, to put a bid in for prayers and thoughts and love and just the outpouring of love. It's amazing. What I was thinking on my walk is sometimes when we go through challenges in our life, we are surrounded and lifted up by family and friends and people who know us well. And I think we underestimate the power of community. A lot of bad things can be said about technology, but I look at this group of women who are going to Italy. Most of us have not met each other. They've been in my programs before, They only joined my programs not because they knew me. We grew and learned because of my memberships, because of my programs, because of that community. And some of these women are some of my dearest friends now, and I haven't even met them in person, which may seem really strange, but I think we underestimate the power of community, and that sometimes people who are a little bit more distant in our life can be some of our biggest supporters. I look at most of the women in the group, they know me through my programs, and I try to be authentic with them, so I do feel like they know me, but they don't necessarily know my family. They haven't met my kids. They've never been to my home. They don't know my husband. They haven't, and yet there's still a connection. So there's so many different levels of connection, so many different levels of friendships, and community is so important. Because I was also thinking, we sometimes put a lot of pressure on the people, the circles closest to us, our immediate family, our extended family, our friends, our neighbors. We put a lot of pressure on them, thinking that they should be the ones who are our biggest supporters. And I've thought that. I'm not saying that I don't often still think that, but that hasn't been necessarily the case. And I'm not saying it to call anybody out or to blame anybody or to say oh, I have terrible family and friends. I have really great, awesome family and friends. That being said, I think I'm also at a stage, I am doing a podcast coming up about having adult children. I adore my adult children, and it is one of the most challenging times I find. I had this running joke in Vancouver with a friend. I'm doing a whole podcast episode on this, so bear with me. I'll be explaining it. But I had this running joke where I would say to her, I hate my kids. And she was always shocked, why are you saying that? Her kids are a little bit younger. I'm like, I don't. But I do think that if you have adult children, you may be able to relate to some of the changes that happen in your relationships with adult children. Not all of them, not all of the time. There are just moments. But my whole point is sometimes I feel because they're grown and they're older and they're leading their own lives, and obviously they have their own friends, that they should be having more of an equal relationship with me now, which they don't. And I don't know if they ever will be. I don't know if I will ever feel, I don't know if we should. I'm still mulling it over. I have lots to say about it in my podcast episode, that, we raise them to leave us, but it is really hard when they do leave us, especially as you get older. You start looking at them as, hey, you guys are sort of in the zone where you can be my support, and you could be, counted as friends. And while that is true to a certain extent, we are still always their parent. And so there is always a sense of a difference in relationship. Anyhow, all that to say, that was like a total tangent. I will do a podcast. I did do a podcast episode. It's coming out in a couple weeks. Sorry, but even my closest friends, so they have their own things going on. We can't be relying on one source to help bolster us up and help support us. That was just my whole point, that sometimes we expect people in our life to be everything for every situation, for every celebration, for every challenge, and that's a lot to ask from one specific group of friends or family members. We need to be boistered up and supported by many, many people. I love that analogy of if I'm carrying a heavy pail of water, it's really heavy if I'm carrying it by myself, but if I have somebody that comes along and they also help lift the handle, then the water is still cumbersome to carry. It's probably annoying in some ways because people are bumping into each other, but it's much, much lighter. And when we create community, that's what that does. And I think that community can be created in many, many, many places. I often talk about how we heal in connection. We heal in community. I think that's true. We experience most trauma in community. We experience most trauma in relationships. And so we heal in them. But it's not a one-for-one. I don't have to have a rupture with you and necessarily have a repair with you. There are other ways that I can heal. And that is sort of my example with my adult children, that sometimes I have challenges with them, or I have frustrations or deep, deep sadness where I feel invisible. I feel no longer needed. I feel completely dismissed. I feel like I literally am the last person on your list to consider. I'm going to get all teary now because this is touching very close to my heart. You're still my number one. Why am I so low on your list? But it's not their job. It's not their responsibility. And I don't need to necessarily have the repair with that person. I can turn to other outlets and I can share, allow my feelings, be free with what I want to say, and feel supported and nourished by people who I may never even have met in person. That's been my experience, at least. So if you're feeling lonely in your life, if you're feeling like you don't have a support system, if you're feeling like you have adult children who have completely gone off and leading their own best lives, if that's not your experience, that's great to you. And I'm not saying it's completely my experience. I honestly will say I have amazing children, but they're still leading their own lives, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And if you're feeling that way, or you've grown apart from friends, which happens, Mel Robbins talks about the importance of proximity in friends and time of life with friends, that there needs to be certain things in line so that you can be close friends with people. And I totally see that. Your friends change as the seasons of your life change. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I love so many of my friends over various seasons, but not all have remained consistent threads in my life. But you can build a community. You can reach out to complete strangers. You can find people online. You can find people in neighborhood support groups, church congregations. You can find people who can become your people and support you. And that's what I'm seeing in my own communities now. This is what I'm seeing with these amazing women who are going to Italy. I know Italy is going to be a magical experience because of who these women are. I truly feel like, I felt like this before what happened with one of our dear friends. I felt it was going to be magical. I felt these women were all called to come on this adventure in this retreat. And I feel that even more. It's almost becoming more of a sacred experience, knowing that how tender life is, how fragile life is. And just reach out to people. Don't assume that your closest people who should be your friends or your family are the only ones. There's lots of people out there. Sorry for the background noise. I know that it's a little bit distracting. Lots of construction happening around our neighborhood. All right, have a great day.